Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I want to talk about some poetry of interest, and we have reached the end of the LGBT period of Pride, where I've been talking about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender poets between the end of May and now the end of July. Today I have I believe a gay poet for you, or at least a bisexual poet. I am referring to a poem that is about an unnoticed emotion, at least by other people. I am referring to And When My Sorrow Was Born by Khalil Gibran. For those who don't know, Khalil Gibran was a Lebanese poet who lived between 1881 and the 1930s. He wrote a bunch of poetry as well as a couple novels, but he also did art as well, which is interesting. He has a number of artworks to his name. I've seen a little bit of them, but I'm not here to review any art. His works have sort of been magical realist in nature, but also they kind of read like parables or metaphors, at least in the poetry side of things. I haven't had a chance to really review his novels, but I'm sure they're well regarded. He was an Arabic man who frequently shows up in LGBT list. So I don't really, I don't really know if he is 100% gay, but I'm going to trust what other people have said about him here. If anyone has a problem with that, let me know in the comments and I can find an appropriate replacement at a later point. But without further ado, let's talk about this poem. I will read it and do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. And when my sorrow was born. And when my joy was born, I held it in my arms and stood on the housetop shouting, "Come ye, my neighbors, come and see, for joy this day is born unto me. Come and behold this gladsome thing that laugheth in the sun." But none of my neighbors came to look upon my joy, and great was my astonishment. And every day for 7 months I proclaimed my joy from the housetop, and yet no one heeded me. And my joy and I were alone, unsought and unvisited. Then my joy grew pale and weary, because no other heart but mine held its loveliness, and no other lips kissed its lips. Then my joy died of isolation, and now I only remember my dead joy in remembering my dead sorrow. But memory is an autumn leaf that murmurs a while in the wind, and then is heard no more. In terms of analysis, that was And When My Sorrow Was Born. Just talking about the narrative of the poem, I think it's pretty easy to see what the narrator is getting at. They're talking about how they felt great joy once, told everyone that they could find, proclaimed it, but no one noticed their joy, and so eventually it just turned to sorrow, and they were sad about it. But they end the poem by saying that it's these memories, they're fleeting, and not a lot of people are going to remember it. Specifically in the last verse, he says, "And now I only remember my dead joy in remembering my dead sorrow. But memory is an autumn leaf that murmurs a while in the wind, and then is heard no more." So they kind of compare, or they associate their joy with their dead sorrow. So kind of a mix of memories, how sadness can affect your way of thinking, but also just saying that memory is short. Our memories won't last for very long, or our feelings of sorrow won't last for very long, or our sort of memories of those period. And so it's like the wind. It like a leaf falls and you don't really think about it after a while. So even though this is sad that no one paid attention to your joy, and that eventually developed into sorrow. Like it's just but a fleeting moment. So using a little bit of mindfulness, a little sort of Buddhist mindset that these feelings, these memories are temporary, and eventually you might reach a better point, or something better will come along in the near future, which is nice. But I also find this poem's like naming structure interesting. It's and when my sorrow was born. That's the name of the poem, but the first line is, and when my joy was born. So immediately contrasting that sorrow with joy, indicating there's a clash of emotional differences here. I just find that to be a little bit interesting. But the last thing I'll note is that much like many of Khalil's poems, this is told in sort of like prose format. It's not like traditionally written like a poem like you might see with your Emily Dickinsons or your Walt Whitmans or what have you. It's written like prose format in like you're speaking in like verses of prose. Which I've seen a couple of other writers do, but Khalil Gibran does that for pretty much all of his poems. Makes it kind of hard to get through them sometimes, but they come across as like biblical in nature. Like he's saying, like, "Come ye, my neighbors, and come and see, for joy this day is born unto me." Kind of proclaiming in the same breath how you would proclaim the birth of Jesus or something like that. But maybe your joy is is like an equivalent to Jesus. That's pretty much what how Khalil seemed to have written. He writes a lot in metaphors and allegories and other sorts of things like that, which is interesting, but might make it hard to get into his writing. That doesn't mean it's not important, but it is kind of hard to understand maybe what he's trying to talk about at times. That was And When My Sorrow Was Born, a fun poem. I highly recommend that you check it out, and I will put a link to it in the description, so let me know your thoughts in the comment below, or if you just want to have a conversation about what I said here, I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem or this poet if they don't already know. I am certainly glad to have found this poet, and I hope to talk more about LGBTQA poets in the future. I won't be like immediately trying to seek them out specifically, but I will talk about those types of poets from time to time, going forward. Just because we're not in this period of Pride does not mean we shouldn't be talking about these various types of poets and their experiences in the world. I feel like that's important to say there. But until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and hopefully not sorrow-ridden travels. Farewell.